Talk with the Doc. I'm with Caring for Creatures Veterinary Hospital, and today we're talking about bearded dragons. So this is 007. He is our clinic pet, and if you come to our clinic, you'll see him if you go into one of our exam rooms. He lives in one of the exam rooms. So bearded dragons, they get their name because if they're angry, their little neck here will darken, turn black, and puff up, and they almost look like they have a beard. So bearded dragons, he's a baby. He's very, very tiny. Bearded dragons actually, when they're adults, will grow up to anywhere from 18 to 24 inches. So he's very young. He's much smaller than he will be someday. Someday he'll be about this large. As far as what these guys eat, they should eat some vegetables, leafy greens, or cabbage or carrots, and then they should also eat bugs. Ideally, cockroaches. Cockroaches are higher in nutrition than crickets and worms, but they can also eat crickets and mealworms. You can get cockroaches at a lot of pet stores, particularly dubia cockroaches, and they really like them. They'll also get some exercise so they can chase them around. For housing, when they're young, they can have a smaller cage, like a 10-gallon tank, but as they get older, they'll need a much larger setup because these guys get very big. You'll have to get likely a 20 to 30-gallon tank. For their temperature, these guys actually live in very warm environments. The cold, you should have 2 thermometers in your tank, one on the cold side, one on the hot side. The cold side of the tank should be around 80 degrees, and the hot side of the tank should be around 90 degrees. So you need to make sure that your tank is warm enough, because if these guys get too cold, they'll be more prone to sickness. Then you also have to have, in order to do that, you'll have to have a heat light, but you'll also have to have a UVB light. UVB light is the most important thing for these little guys because that's the #1 reason why I see them. Because if they do not have proper UVB lighting and proper supplements, they will get something called metabolic bone disease. What metabolic bone disease means is in order to get the appropriate calcium they need, their body will start to break down their own bones to get calcium. And so these little guys will come in with severe fractures, often of their jaws, their limbs, their spines. The most severe are usually spinal fractures. They can actually get paralyzed, and then they have to be euthanized. So it's very important that you have appropriate UVB lighting. Make sure it's UVB. And you have to change this light bulb every 6 months. It doesn't matter if it looks like the light's still working. If you don't change it every 6 months, the wavelength of that light will not be producing enough UVB rays to provide them appropriate nutrition. And so make sure, regardless of if your light works, that you always change your light every 6 months. And then you also need to give them calcium. The calcium is very important to go with the lighting because that's how the lighting helps them absorb the calcium. So the calcium supplement it comes in a powder. You can sprinkle it on their food, the vegetables, or you can also dip their bugs like the crickets or the cockroaches or the mealworms in the calcium prior to feeding it to them. You can also do something called gut loading your crickets or roaches and pre-feed them calcium supplements in their food so that their body already has a little bit more calcium. It's very important for them to get calcium, again, because you don't want them to get sick and get metabolic bone disease. So this is the calcium powder they should be getting. It comes in a powder form. It's very easy to use, and you can just sprinkle it on their vegetables or dip the bugs. Here's an example of a very small cage setup. 007 is just about to outgrow his cage. We're about to get him a new cage because he's getting a little too big, but this is an okay cage for a baby, but as they grow, they'll need bigger and bigger cages. You can use a glass aquarium. This on the bottom is called Repticarpet. Repticarpet is, you can order it online or get it at pet stores. It's very nice, and you can use it for the bottom for the bedding. You can clean up the stools as they poop, and then every week you should trade out the whole entire Repticarpet and replace it with new Repticarpet. They should also have a water dish in their cage, as well as they typically like to have a hide in their cage. And then what's on the top of the cage is the lights I was discussing. So one side is the UVB and one side is the heat. So the heat is typically red, and this will make his cage nice and warm for him. And the other side is a white light, but make sure your white light is a UVB. These guys also need to be soaked. So to soak them, you can either use, some people use bathtubs, sinks, or you can use a Tupperware. Put some warm water, just enough to cover their body, and soak them for about 5 to 10 minutes in the warm water, and that will help hydrate them. They don't always drink a lot in their cage, but when you put them in warm water, they will often drink quite a bit at that point. And this warm water also helps their skin. It'll help them shed as well. So it's important to do that once a week. And these guys make great pets. They're very, very friendly lizards. They're fairly low maintenance. It's just very important that you remember the calcium and the UVB lighting. So that was our talk today on bearded dragons. If you would like to submit a request for our next video, send us a message on Facebook.